Here's something that happened to me last week that broke my brain for about 45 minutes. I was editing a document on my laptop, important stuff, hours of work, and my cloud sync kicked in and told me there was a conflict. Two versions of the same file, both had my edits. Both were current. Both were, as far as the computer was concerned, the real one. And I just stared at that dialog box. Keep both, replace, merge? And I thought, this is the episode. Last time on episode 3, we talked about the recycle bin, the idea that if reality is information, then death isn't deletion, so it's archival. Your pattern gets stored somewhere, filed away, and I teased a question at the end that I think is even more unsettling than death. If consciousness is a pattern and patterns can be copied, what does that mean for identity? Are you the only you? Or are there backups running somewhere you don't know about? Because here's the thing about copies. When you copy a file, the copy isn't lesser. It's not a rough draft. It's identical. Bit for bit, byte for byte, the copy is the original. There is no difference. And if that's true for files and you're made of information, welcome back to the existence experiment. I'm your host, Travis R. Barlow. Today we're talking about duplication, identity, and the terrifying possibility that you might not be a singular thing. Let's get into it. Let's start with something simple. You have a photo on your phone. You duplicate it. Now you have two photos. Which one is the original? You'd probably point to the first one, the one that was there first. But here's the problem. They're identical. If I shuffled them and showed you both side by side, you could not tell me which came first. There is no physical, measurable, detectable difference between them. The only thing that makes one the original is the story you tell about it. Its history, not its substance. Now scale that up, way up. If consciousness is a pattern of information, and we spent all of episode 3 building that case, then in principle, that pattern can be copied. Not metaphorically, not approximately, exactly. A perfect duplicate. Every synapse, every connection, every electrical impulse, every quantum state of every particle in your brain, all of it reproduced with total fidelity. The duplicate would have your memories, your personality, your sense of humor. It would remember your childhood, your first kiss, what you had for breakfast this morning. It would feel like you. It would insist it was you. And from the inside, it would have absolutely no way of knowing it wasn't. So, which one is you? Philosophers have been torturing themselves with this question for decades, and the cleanest version of it is the teleporter problem. Imagine we invent a teleporter. It works by scanning every atom in your body, transmitting that information to another location, and rebuilding you from local materials on the other end. Perfect copy, atom for atom. You step in on Earth, you step out on Mars. Instantaneous travel. Sounds great, right? Except for one detail. What happens to the original? The version of you standing in the scanner on Earth? In the standard version of the thought experiment, the original is destroyed, disintegrated. And most people are surprisingly okay with that because it feels like you're just moving. The person on Mars has your memories, your personality, your continuity of experience. From Mars U's perspective, you just stepped through a door. But now imagine the teleporter malfunctions. It builds the copy on Mars, but it doesn't destroy the original on Earth. Now there are two of you, both conscious, both with identical memories up to the moment of scanning. Both absolutely certain they are the real you. Earth you looks at Mars you and says, that's a copy. Mars you looks at Earth you and says, no, that's the copy. And here's the devastating part. Neither of them is wrong. They're both right. They're both you. This isn't just a thought experiment anymore. This is the kind of question we're going to have to answer. Because the technology to scan and replicate biological structures is advancing fast. And the closer we get to being able to copy a brain, the more urgently we need to figure out what identity actually means. Now let's bring this back to our framework. If we're in a simulation, copying a consciousness isn't a technical challenge. It's trivial. It's what computers do. Copy and paste. That's the most basic operation in computing. So the question isn't, can the simulation copy you? The question is, has it already? Think about it. If you're a data structure running in a computed reality, the system has full access to your code. It can read you, write you, fork you, merge you, roll you back to a previous state. Every night when you lose consciousness in sleep, the system could, in theory, be running maintenance on your process, defragging your memory, optimizing your neural patterns. And if it wanted to, it could duplicate you. You'd never know. The copy wouldn't know. There would be no seam, no scar, no telltale sign. You'd wake up tomorrow morning feeling exactly like yourself. But which yourself are you? The one that went to sleep? Or a fresh instance that just booted up with yesterday's memories preloaded? Here's where this gets really wild. What if the simulation doesn't just copy you once? What if it copies you at every major decision point? You know those moments in life that feel like they could go either way? Take the job or don't. Say yes or say no. Turn left or turn right. What if at each of those forks the simulation branches? It runs both versions. One copy of you takes the job. Another copy doesn't. Both continue running. Both are equally real. Both think they made a free choice. Sound familiar? It should, because this is almost exactly what quantum mechanics already describes. The many worlds interpretation, first proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957, says that every quantum measurement causes the universe to split into branches. In one branch, the particle goes left. In another, it goes right. Both branches are real. Both continue evolving. The universe doesn't choose. It runs all the options. If we're in a simulation, the many worlds interpretation isn't mysterious at all. It's just parallel processing. The simulation doesn't need to choose which outcome to render. It has the computational power to render all of them. Every branch, every possibility, every version of you. There might be a version of you that didn't listen to this podcast today, a version that took that other job, a version that said yes when you said no, and all of them are running right now in their own branch, completely unaware of each other, each one convinced they're the only one. There's an ancient Greek thought experiment called the ship of Theseus. You have a ship. Over time, you replace each plank of wood as it rots, one plank at a time. Eventually, every single piece of the ship has been replaced. Is it still the same ship? Most people say yes, because there's continuity. The ship was never not the ship. It changed gradually, piece by piece, and at no single point did it stop being itself. But here's the twist. What if someone collected all the old planks and built a second ship from them? Now you have two ships. Both have a legitimate claim to being the ship of Theseus. The new one has continuity. The old one has the original material. This isn't just about ships. This is about you, right now. We talked about this in episode 3. Your atoms are replaced every 7 to 10 years. You are already a ship of Theseus. The continuity of your consciousness, the feeling of being the same person you were yesterday, last year, when you were 5. That's the thread. But what is that thread exactly? What is it made of? If it's just information, just the pattern, the arrangement, the code, then it can be copied. And if it can be copied, then continuity is an illusion. You're not one continuous self. You're a story about a continuous self, a narrative your brain constructs to make sense of the fact that the pattern keeps running. And a story can have multiple readers. I think the mistake we make, the mistake that makes the copy problem feel so impossible, is that we think of I as a thing, a noun, an object, something you can point to and say, there it is, that's me. But what if I is a verb? A process? Not something you are, but something you're doing. Think about a flame. A candle flame isn't a thing. It's a process, a continuous chemical reaction. The molecules cycling through it are constantly changing. The shape fluctuates. The heat output varies. But we call it the flame as if it's a stable object. It's not. It's an event, a happening. You're the same thing. Your consciousness is not a static thing sitting inside your skull. It's a process, an ongoing computation, a verb masquerading as a noun. You're not something that has experiences. You are the experiencing. The moment the process stops, the you stops. Not because something was destroyed, but because the verb stopped verbing. And if you copy the process, you don't get a copy of the noun. You get a second instance of the verb. Another flame burning independently. Same origin, same pattern, but a different fire. So is there any actual evidence that identity can be split? That one person can become two? Actually, yes. And it's one of the most disturbing findings in all of neuroscience. In the 1960s, doctors started performing a procedure called a corpus callosotomy to treat severe epilepsy. They cut the corpus callosum, the thick bundle of nerve fibers connecting the left and right hemispheres of the brain. It stopped the seizures, but it also did something nobody expected. It created two separate consciousnesses in one skull. Neuroscientist Roger Sperry and his student Michael Gazzaniga ran experiments on these split brain patients and found that the two hemispheres could hold different beliefs, different desires, even different personalities. In one famous case, a patient's left hand would button up his shirt while his right hand unbuttoned it. The two halves of his brain literally disagreed about getting dressed. Another patient was shown a scary image in only the left visual field, which feeds into the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere, the one that handles language, had no idea what was shown. But the patient reported feeling anxious. When asked why, the left hemisphere made up a reason. It confabulated. It told a story to explain an emotion it didn't actually have the context for. Think about what that means. One brain, one skull, two separate conscious agents, each with their own experience, each telling themselves they're the real one. And the one with language, the one that can talk, doesn't even realize the other one exists. It just papers over the gaps with stories. If a single cut in your brain can create two yous, what does that tell us about how fragile and copyable identity really is? There's another piece of evidence hiding in plain sight, and we've been looking at it for all of human history. Identical twins. Identical twins start as one cell, one fertilized egg that splits into two. At the moment of division, they are, genetically, informationally, the same person. A perfect fork in the code. Two processes running the same initial software. And then they diverge. Different experiences, different memories, different choices. Within weeks, even in the womb, they're developing differently. By the time they're adults, they're clearly distinct people, even if they look the same. But here's what's fascinating. Studies on identical twins raised apart, separated at birth, reunited decades later, show astonishing similarities. Twins who've never met choosing the same careers, marrying people with the same names, having the same quirks, the same fears, the same weird habits. The pattern, even after decades of divergence, still echoes. It's like two copies of the same file, opened on different computers, edited independently for 30 years. And when you compare them, the core structure is still recognizably the same document. The pattern has a gravity to it, a tendency to express itself similarly even in wildly different environments. If the simulation is branching reality at decision points, identical twins might be what it looks like when the fork happens at the biological level instead of the quantum level. Two runs of the same code, diverging in real time. All right, you know how this goes. Episode 4, and I'm still keeping myself honest. The biggest objection to all of this is what philosophers call the problem of subjective experience, or qualia. Even if you copy my pattern perfectly, every neuron, every connection, every quantum state, how do you know the copy has experience? How do you know it's not just a perfect simulation of me that acts like me, talks like me, insists it's me, but has no inner life? A philosophical zombie. This is the hard problem of consciousness, and it's genuinely hard. We don't understand what generates subjective experience. We don't know if it's something that emerges from information processing or if it requires something extra, some ingredient we haven't identified yet. If consciousness needs something beyond information, then a copy might be a hollow replica. All the behavior, none of the being. The counter argument, and the reason I'm still drawn to the information theory of identity, is parsimony. If two systems are physically identical in every measurable way, the simplest explanation is that they have the same properties, including consciousness. To argue otherwise, you have to posit some unmeasurable, undetectable soul stuff that makes the original special. And while I can't disprove that, it feels like it's adding complexity without evidence. The second objection, many worlds, is an interpretation, not a proven fact. We have no experimental evidence that other branches of the wave function actually exist. They're mathematically consistent, but so are lots of things that aren't real. I'm using many worlds as a framework, and I should be transparent that it's one of several competing interpretations of quantum mechanics. The Copenhagen interpretation, for example, says the wave function collapses and only one outcome is real. No copies, no branches. Fair? Absolutely fair. But I'd point out that within the simulation hypothesis, the choice of interpretation is less important. The simulation doesn't need quantum mechanics to branch reality. It can just run multiple instances. The physics we observe might be an artifact of the simulation's architecture, not the other way around. So why does any of this matter? Why should you care whether you're one or many? Because it changes the stakes of being alive. If you're the only you, then your life is unique, precious, unrepeatable. Every moment matters because it will never happen again. That's the traditional view, and it's beautiful. But if there are many versions of you, branching at every decision, running in parallel, some of them living the lives you almost lived, then something strange happens. Your life isn't less meaningful. If anything, it's more meaningful. Because this version, this specific thread of experience, is the only one you'll ever be aware of. You can't switch tracks. You can't peek into the other branches. You're locked into your own story, and the only way you get to experience it is by being fully, completely here. In a way, multiplicity makes presence more important, not less. If every path is being walked, the one you're on is the only one that matters to you. Not because it's the real one, but because it's the one you're in. And here's the part that really gets me. If identity is a process, not a thing, if you're a verb, not a noun, then the question isn't, who am I? The question is, what am I doing? Who you are is defined by the computation you're running right now, not by your history, not by your atoms, not by whether you're an original or a copy, but by what you choose to process in this moment. That's liberating, because it means identity isn't something you inherit or discover. It's something you generate, continuously. With every thought, every decision, every act of attention, you're not finding yourself, you're making yourself over and over and over again. Copy that. That's episode 4 of the Existence Experiment. We went from file conflicts to teleporters to split brains to the many worlds interpretation. Just another casual Wednesday. Let me pull the thread across all 4 episodes. Episode 1, Consciousness has a ceiling. Episode 2, the universe might be a simulation and the Big Bang was a boot sequence. Episode 3, Death isn't deletion, it's archival, the recycle bin. And now, episode 4, identity isn't singular. If you're made of information and information can be copied, then you is a much stranger and more fluid thing than you ever imagined. Next episode, I want to go somewhere we've been circling since the beginning. If we're in a simulation and there's a programmer, and the system preserves our data and can copy our patterns, is there a way to communicate with whatever's running this thing? Can we send a message up? Can we hack the simulation from the inside? That one's going to get weird. If you like this, share it with someone who has an existential crisis at least once a week. Leave a review. And if you're a twin and any of this resonated in a way that made you uncomfortable, I'd love to hear about it. I'm your host, Travis R. Barlow. This has been the Existence Experiment. And remember, if you're a copy, you're still running. And that's what counts.